What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics, and for a channel that started off by doing statue reviews, it's pretty weird that this is the first statue I've gotten in like 5 months. Let's check it out. We're going back to my roots here, guys, and we are going to talk about the new Sideshow premium format Batman. I'll be honest with you guys, there's been some disapproval about a couple things with this statue, and while I think all of the complaints are valid, some of them I don't agree with, and some of them I very much do. So we're going to get into a 10-part review just like I always did on the channel. We're going to talk about the base, the paint, the sculpt, the colors, the likeness, the coolness, the proportions, and the price. First things first, let's hit you with the backstory on Batman. Batman is an extremely rich orphan that likes to punch penguins and crocodiles in the face. Guys, don't forget to like and comment down below. I am going to be giving away something big at 8,000 subscribers. I haven't fully decided what it's going to be, but I got some ideas. Like down below, join if you're so inclined. I bought this thinking, okay, I'm going to get a custom painter to repaint this for me in the classic villain named Wrath. This dude has a cool color scheme. It would work really well with my villain line that I've got going on. The only problem I've run into is there was a pandemic, and getting custom statues and getting things like repainting done has basically all but disappeared or has slowed down to like a 3 or 4 year turnaround time. I'm not kidding. So custom statue dudes out there, if you know a custom painter that can get this repainted for me in under a year, please message me. So before I get into the review, I always hit you with a where's the beef, where I talk about my issues with the statue up front, and there are more than a few. That head sculpt is underscaled. Not both head sculpts, but that head sculpt specifically is underscaled. The paint was very lackluster in more than a few areas, and it does include some overpainting. It is a very limited pose, and it makes you have to hold it up high, and you really want to be looking at it from the right. It may be too cartoonish or stylistic for some people's liking that strive for the more realism. Let's get into it by talking about this base, and this base kind of molds in together with the cape as well as the actual gargoyle base. There really is a lot to look at here. First things first, and I'm just going to get this out of the way, some people complained about the cape being too cartoonish, too animated, too much of a stylistic take that almost matches that of something like Kelly Jones or something from Tim Burton. Well, I gotta say, I love it. I absolutely love the approach, and I think that the cape / the base is easily the strongest thing about this statue. As a very noobish sculptor and artist myself, I know it's really hard to get fabric, and they really sculpted a cape that really looks very well at the folds, and it's just a really good job. I like that it travels all the way up into the statue. I do like that it is one solid block of a piece. Focusing back down on the bottom though, there are some areas that are weak on the base, notably the gargoyle. I mean, this thing is not getting all the detail points here. Yeah, they tried to add some porous things in there, but it's just a little too smooth and could have really used a lot more of a rougher texture. Additionally, it's a little bit one-tone. They added some grays and they have some greens in there, but it really need a little bit more to make it pop and look like a realistic concrete or any sort of stone Gotham gargoyle. I also think where it says the Wayne symbol at the bottom is surprisingly lacking in some detail and could have really used some more definition when giving each block its unique characteristic. There really needed to be more going on down there. Same thing with the gargoyle. Make it look more realistic of a stone structure. So the base would have probably gotten a 10 out of 10 from me personally because I love the cape so much. Unfortunately, the gargoyle really brings it down here, and I thought it would look better in person rather than the pictures, and I think it actually looks a little worse, a little bit more simpler, and I know Sideshow is capable of more detail. So because of that, we're going to bump the base all the way down to a 5 out of 10, guys. Next up, let's talk about paint, sculpt, and colors, which almost doesn't even matter for me because I am going to be doing a full repaint of this. But let's take a look here. I actually think the color tones on Batman are quite good. They're going for a stylistic, clearly it's supposed to be nighttime, approach to the Bat figure. Even on his face, It's even showing a lot of darker textures that doesn't look like skin tones. It's clearly supposed to show that he's in the shadows. I actually like that. I think it works. I think it looks pretty good, and it doesn't look too awkwardly tan. On the actual cape itself, the differentiation and knowing where to put the dark blues and the blacks and the light blues to make your ridges pop was expertly done. Again, this is the second time I'm saying it, but the best part about this piece is the cape. Whether you like the stylistic approach or not, the detail is there, the paint is there. I wish that they took some of that paint and detail energy and put it into Batman himself. His suit texture is a little too smooth for my liking. Usually they try to put some sort of texturing in there, but it's just completely smooth. There's unfortunately a lot of overpainting on mine, and areas that really just needed to be fine-tuned. The area of his underwear needed to be more well-defined from his actual pants. It kind of blends together. And the belt is where I see the overpainting. They tried to cover it with the muddy colors to darken the yellow, and because of that, it kind of bleeds together a little bit. Additionally, I'm going to mention it one more time, the suit could have used some texturing. Most Batman good customs and licensed quarter scale pieces have some sort of texture. If it feels too smooth, it feels too smooth, and if it's not fabric, you really notice that it's just a little too smooth. Unfortunately, a lot of the problems that people have with the head sculpts, I really have. Most people tend to not like this head sculpt. They think he looks a little silly how he's lunged forward. And other than the short bat ears, which I prefer long bat ears, I think that's the bit better head sculpt majorly, because that head sculpt is an accurate quarter scale, or at least as close to it as possible. This one I've got on him right now is underscaled, definitely. In fact, if I hold up any one of my quarter scale heads next to him, it doesn't look quite right. He's just a little bit too small of a head there. I also have some issues where it completely does not show any outline of any ears under his cowl at all. And I think that the expression on this particular head sculpt is extremely boring and a little bit lazy. Not much going on. He looks like bored up there on his gargoyle, which, that doesn't work at all. But yeah, I'll never be displaying it with that head. Even though it does look, it looks good. It's lacking in some detail and it's a little boring, but it's a solid head. But man, it's too small. It's not the right size. You can't tell me that's a quarter scale head right there. It even has a kind of a weird neck seam in the back. Yeah, this head is not doing it for me, guys. Alright, so for the paint, and keep in mind, I'm going to be repainting mine, but for the paint, I'm going to give it, again, if it was the cape we're talking, I would have given it a 10 out of 10. But for the paint, we're going to give it a 6 out of 10. The color scheme is going to get an 8 out of 10. I appreciate the color scheme. It doesn't get a full 10 out of 10 because the gargoyle is lacking, and their devotion to keeping it dark doesn't really work on the belt and a couple other areas. As for the sculpt, like I said when I was talking about the base, this needed more of a rough texture. The bat suit needed more of a texture. The head sculpt is kind of boring, and people have some issues with a little too much of a biting his lip thing on this one. So this one is going to get a 4 out of 10 for the sculpt, even though I still kind of like it. I guess a 4 out of 10 is still a passing grade in my book. Now let's give him some points back, because we're going to talk about the design and the pose. So first off, the pose, while it's limiting, you have to display it up high. You have to. You cannot display this down low. It'll look like he's looking at your feet. It should be the highest displayed statue you have in your collection. It also looks particularly good, I feel, like right there, when you're looking at it from that direction or from this direction. For some reason, looking at it from the side helps this piece a lot. I like the way his arms work. I like the way his leg is up, but obviously, most importantly, I like the stylistic Kelly Jones-esque cape wrapping around the base of the gargoyle. It's completely unrealistic. It's way too big, and I love it for it. The too big cape was always a classic Kelly Jones trope, and considering that was my jam growing up, obviously I was going to like this. The design is also pretty good. I do like the fact that it's kind of a minimal footprint here. It is more tall than it is wide, and considering the amount of space I'm trying to get back with my statues and everything, I appreciate that move for sure. It's also not very deep. Mainly, your height is your biggest concern, and it's not even super tall. I have significantly taller statues, so I love its footprint. I think that was absolutely great. I also think it was smart making it one block. Yes, this cape, the gargoyle, and the statues other than the head and the arms are all one piece. Interesting move. I guess that'll help to prevent any breakages, so that's good. It's a very solid piece. It is heavy, so be careful. I also thought the box was a little bit big. For a statue that looks like this, the box seemed a little too large, but I appreciated it because there were no breaks. If you got the exclusive version, you get, this is the regular arm, and the exclusive version is holding a bathrobe. And I actually think it looks pretty good. Mine's a little jumbled up, but I can fix that. I'm sure that shouldn't be any problem. But yeah, that is the one you would want to display that with, for sure. That's a no-brainer in my book. I think that looks pretty nice. So we're gaining some points back here with pose and design. I'm going to give the pose a very solid 9 out of 10. Almost got the 10, but because it's a little limiting, it's got to not quite get it. Also, for the design, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. I think it's very solid. There's a lot that works for it, and the only things that tend to bring it down are some of the things related more towards the sculpt and things of that nature. Not to mention, there's no way I can give it the perfect 10 if one of the head sculpt is just flat out underscaled. So let's talk about coolness and likeness. So this actually, I'm tired of looking at this head sculpt. I'm going to put the other one on because I think it's actually better. I know some people don't agree with me, but that's fine. Yeah, I like that better. And I don't like short-eared Batman, but it's a bigger head. That one works for me. That one has the likeness more than I think that other one. The other one's so bland, I will never be displaying it with that head. That is the head for me. And since I'm going to get mine custom done to look like Wrath, I'm sure I'm going to have someone have to expand the ears and make the face look like a W. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do all that, but we'll see. But as for Batman, I think it definitely has the coolness. The fact that they really took a risk doing that stylistic cape adds a certain coolness element that most Batman statues simply aren't going to get. Unfortunately, I think it's most weakest if you look at it directly in front, because there's a certain amount, especially with this head, of simplicity that Sideshow is just, you can do a better job. The gargoyle's too simple, and the suit's a little too simple. Really needed some pop in the painting and in the texture, so that actually hurts the coolness a little bit. Like if that was all there, this would be a little bit higher. But with this head sculpt, I'm going to give the coolness an 8 out of 10. With this head sculpt, I'm going to give the coolness like a 5 out of 10. Same thing with likeness. I'd give this like a 2 out of 10. And with that head sculpt on, I think the likeness is, I mean, maybe a 10 out of 10. That's Batman to me. Even if he looks a little bit weird to some of you, that is Batman. You cannot deny. So, proportions, like I said, it has a minimal footprint. The funny thing is I'm pretty sure he's scaled accurately, but the head sculpt, it's not accurate. But that head sculpt is a lot closer to being an accurate quarter scale. Interestingly, I think it may still even be a bit on the small side. You put any head next to that and it looks just a notch too small. This head, they goofed up. I think maybe mine got shrunk in the mail or something. I don't know. It's definitely too small. So once again, with that head sculpt, the proportions are accurate, 10 out of 10. But if you put this head sculpt, which a lot of you in the community think is better, I don't know why you would think that, but a lot of people in the community think that one's better. You put that one on there, suddenly your proportions are a 6 out of 10, being generous. Now we got to talk about the price, and it's a Sideshow piece post 2018, so pretty much everything with tax and shipping is well going to be over 600, closer to the 700, oftentimes more, especially with the exclusive edition, which I did get. Now, one reason I did get this is because I had a bunch of Sideshow rewards, and I was able to get this thing for free. I just had to pay for the shipping. So I was able to pick this thing up for the cost of shipping. So For me, the price would be a 20 out of 10, but for you guys, because it does have those problems and it's lacking in the detail, I probably have to say you're looking at a 7 out of 10 on the price. I really would. Now the funny thing is, I haven't mentioned this yet, but I do think that this is better than the previous premium format. I really had some beef with the previous premium format. And that one had the things I wanted. It had the texture, but I didn't like the color scheme. I didn't like the artistic direction personally on the last PF. I did not like the cape. The cape was the worst part about that. And I didn't like the head sculpt, even though it was an accurate scale. So I think this is the better statue, but it comes with its own series of problems. I therefore still think that the Prime 1 Sideshow Team-Up New 52 Batman is still the best quarter scale statue that exists. And unfortunately, that is overscaled. So the best statue for Batman, in my opinion, still has its problems. One day, we're going to get the perfect Batman quarter scale statue. Sadly, that is not today. So in closing thoughts, I've owned many quarter scale Batman statues. This one falls right about in the middle. I know it did get some low scores, but I actually do like the piece a lot overall. I'm almost going to be sad to see it turned into another character, but no way. I'm really excited for that. You know, I think it's better than the original PF. I think it's better than the last PF. I think it's nowhere near as good as the new 52 quarter scale, but, you know, whatever. I also have a custom Batman coming in, but that'll probably be like 2 years, so we'll see. I'm mostly pleased-ish, kind of, with this statue, I think. Stay tuned for more reviews, comic talks, top 10s, and keep on hunting.